In the forgotten forests of Eastern Europe, tucked away from the modern world, lies a small, isolated village named Volek. It's far from cities, far from main roads, and according to local legend, far from the land of the living. This is because, at the very heart of Volek, inside a stone crypt older than the village itself, rests a woman who never decayed. Her name was Katerina Valescu. In her time, she was known throughout the region for her stunning beauty, but she was equally feared for her unnerving silence. When she passed away in 1782, the villagers, for reasons lost to time, refused to give her a traditional burial. Instead, they commissioned a coffin made of pure, clear glass. The local mason who carved it claimed that even in death she seemed to refuse darkness, and strangely, it appeared he was right. Once sealed inside the glass coffin, Katerina's body did not fade. Her skin remained pale and smooth. Her dark hair framed her face perfectly, and her lips stayed a soft, rosy color, as if she were merely lost in a deep sleep. Word of the ageless woman spread, and curious travelers journeyed for miles, sometimes for weeks, just to see her beautiful corpse untouched by time. But with fascination came fear. Soon, whispers and rumors began to haunt the village of Volek. People who visited the crypt would swear that her eyes sometimes shifted beneath their lids. On cold winter nights, some claimed to see a faint breath fogging the inside of the glass. The most chilling rumor of all was that those who stared into her face for too long would hear a faint, desperate whisper carried on the air. "Let me out." Decades passed, and the legend of Katerina only grew stronger. Then, in the year 1899, a young scholar named Adrian Marlowe arrived in Volek. Intrigued by the tales, he decided to document the phenomenon. Unlike other visitors, Adrian stayed longer than most. He spent his days inside the crypt, sketching Katerina's serene face, studying the intricate craftsmanship of the glass coffin, and dismissing every single warning from the nervous villagers. On his final night in Volek, as he was making his last few notes, he noticed something strange. He was certain that the position of her hands had changed. When he had first arrived, both of her hands were crossed peacefully over her chest. Now, one rested slightly lower, its delicate fingers closer to the glass. Excited by his discovery, he rushed to the village tavern to tell everyone. But the villagers just laughed at him, brushing it off as a trick of the light or an overactive imagination fueled by old stories. Frustrated and determined to prove them wrong, Adrian decided to return to the crypt alone at midnight. Lantern in hand, he made his way back through the silent, sleeping village. The heavy stone door of the crypt creaked open, and he stepped inside. The air was cold and still. He approached the coffin and leaned in close, holding his lantern up to get a better look. The glass was ice-cold to the touch, yet he could feel a faint, almost imperceptible warmth pulsing from within. And then it happened. Katerina's eyes snapped open. They were dark, bottomless pools, and they stared directly into his. Adrian let out a scream, a raw, terrified sound, but the thick stone walls of the crypt swallowed it whole. No one heard him. The next morning, the villagers found his leather-bound notebook lying just outside the crypt door. Curious and a little concerned, they went inside. The glass coffin was still perfectly sealed, and Katerina was unchanged, looking as peaceful as ever. Except for one small detail. Her eyes were closed again, and lying on the floor beside her coffin was Adrian's lantern. Its flame had been newly extinguished. Since that night, the pattern has continued. Every decade or so, another person disappears without a trace in Volek. Usually, it's a curious traveler, someone who didn't heed the warnings. The only clue left behind is a personal belonging, a hat, a book, a walking stick placed neatly before the crypt's entrance. The villagers will tell you that with each disappearance, the woman inside the glass looks just a little more alive. A bit more color seems to return to her cheeks. Her fingers shift ever so slightly. If you ever find yourself in the forgotten forests of Eastern Europe and stumble upon the village of Volek, you might be tempted to visit the crypt. But if you do, remember the stories. Do not lean too close to the glass. Do not let your breath fog its surface. And above all, if her eyes open, don't you dare blink. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the unknown. See you next time.